Hello. Welcome to Conversations About Sadness this week. I'm Jessica from Jessica Dawn Coaching, and I'm really glad to have you here. This is the weekly live, having a little chit chat about the theme of the week that is ongoing and has just gone past. And if you've been looking at my posts at all, you'll know that this week has been all about sadness. And I don't think I've got anyone here, which is fine. I haven't had any questions. It's been a little bit quieter in the group about all of this, and I'm really curious about that. I'm curious about whether it's just that, this hasn't been resonating, or maybe it's been resonating a lot, when we personally, when sadness comes into play in my own experience, I tend to get quiet and I withdraw for a while until I make my way out of it. And so maybe that's happening, maybe not, maybe it's something completely different. And, I'm just gonna riff, kind of shoot from the hip on what seems really relevant about the whole experience of sadness and why I think it's necessary. I launched into sadness as a subject because of, what I shared, if you've been reading this, what I shared about, having gone through like a pretty big trigger in anger, and then the crash that I have that I call the rage hangover. And I just want to, my mom is, she's an addictions counselor, and so she came in and she gave me some physiological terms on what actually happens, what causes that rage hangover. So I just got it here. I'm going to read it out because I think it's really helpful, and I'm going to share it as much as I can. And a lot of people have shared that when I highlighted my mom's comment, that they did find it helpful to understand what was going on, because for them it was just like, wow, I'm really frozen. But what my mom says is that the rage hangover is because of the noradrenaline, which is like the brakes to the adrenaline's rush. Because if adrenaline was running all the time, then it's like revving the engine until it completely burns out. So it's like the brakes to the adrenaline's rush. Adrenaline speeds you way up. Noradrenaline leaves you feeling like you took a bunch of downers or tranquilizers, fuzzy-headed, sore all over, slow as a sloth, and probably having trouble thinking. So, it makes sense that would be, your slowdown point after a big burst of anger. And I'm curious how many of you here have experienced that, or have tuned into, wow, like I was so angry and now I'm exhausted. Same thing, I don't know if you remember as a kid when you'd be so upset and you'd cry and cry and cry, and then you'd just fall asleep and you'd have, like a really deep sleep, but you'd wake up feeling almost drained still. I mean, maybe not as a kid either, right? Like I'm sure if I really tune into it, I can remember times as an adult where I've had that happen. Sadness can be cleansing if you allow yourself to feel it. The necessity of it is that, we have this experience in our lives, and it's got highs and lows. Those highs and lows are necessary. They're necessary to build appreciation as well. If you're in just like a constant high state of joy, not that that would suck, but, would you have that breadth of contrast, right? That contrast helps you shift into a new direction. If you're goal setting, if you're building a life, if you're looking forward, like, what do I want to create? It's kind of important to know what you don't want to create as well. Not to dwell on like, okay, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this, but to sort of sit in that experience of, like, I don't like this. And the important key there is to shift into, what is it that I do like? So not necessarily as an avoidance, right? Like away from is not as powerful as a towards. in goal setting and in building, what types of experiences that you want. But they can be good definers. Like, okay, what did I create in my life that was going on when I had that emotional experience that I don't want to have again? And using those as guideposts along the way rather than places to get stuck, if that makes sense, right? So a lot of what I talk about when I'm working with clients is like, okay, what is the message here? Like, what is the flag in this emotion that you're experiencing? So if you're in a place of sadness, we're all going to experience sadness at one time or another. And so it's a natural reaction. What can you learn from it? What can it tell you? Do you allow space for that lesson to unfold, right? Can you honor your sadness? Can you let yourself cry? I know for me, tears have not always come easily. It's taken me a lot. I hold a lot in, and I can remember the point where I learned, like, very clearly, like, this is not okay. Crying in front of people, crying makes people uncomfortable. And it came from my grandmother, right? Like, very colonial upbringing, not a judgment, but that's just how things were back then. And when my grandfather died, I was taught it was very clear, don't cry, it makes people uncomfortable. And as I got older, it's like, well, why? Why does it make people uncomfortable when everyone has that reaction? When a baby is sad, baby cries. A baby cries to have its needs met. So when you're sad and you're holding back those tears, what needs are you disallowing from being met? Ask yourself, if you're in the midst of sadness, ask yourself, what do I need right now? That's such an important question for any emotional, like explosiveness or big event that causes an emotional flare-up. What are my needs right now? What is not being met? How can I meet those needs? When you're in that midst, if you're sad, how do you want to feel? And just saying not sad isn't quite going to cut it, but like, wow, I really like it when I'm feeling, grateful. Gratitude gets talked about a lot, and that's because it's powerful. Appreciation and gratitude. Journaling. Talk about journaling a lot too. So in the midst of sadness, what are the ways that you can move it out and express it? Maybe it's not tears, maybe it's through journaling. I've found that for myself and most of my clients, that when they start journaling, that unlocks the ability to have those tears. And tears are so cleansing. I think I've shared that before as well. They're cleansing. They leave you feeling a little bit drained, but a lot lighter. And what's interesting, there's people have done tests on tears and what tears contain, like what kind of, there's a science to it, but they analyze what the makeup of the tears are. If you're sad, if you're happy, if you're angry, and they're all different. So that's really interesting to me, and to me shows that it is a release. Like, it's a physical release and cleansing when it's needed. The other thing that I talked about, if you read my blog this week, is I talked about Gottman's feelings wheel, which if you haven't taken a look at it, I encourage you to go read the blog, and it's called The Necessity of Sadness. And it takes the core emotions, so mad, scared, joyful, powerful, peaceful, and sad, and it shows all of the sub-emotions that come out of it. And that might be really interesting for you to go and explore and start to do your own journeying and exploration of how things show up for you. And it might open up some learnings for you in your own experience. So it was a really quiet group. There wasn't anyone here today, and that's okay. I don't mind talking into the screen. Next week, I will see you, same time, same place. And if you have any questions after the fact, just pop them into the chat below, and I'm happy to answer. And I hope you enjoy next week's series. If you want to be notified on the newsletter, feel free to sign up. I'll pop the link in to join the newsletter down below. And if you have any questions for me, just send me a message. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.